we go back to the Jeremy Pruitt hire, and it could have actually been worse than Jeremy Pruitt because we've got the Mel Tucker harassment story that I don't want to really dive deep into, but basically he is admitted to doing all this stuff, and the sexual assault is just ugly, and but he says it's consensual. I have my questions about that.
What was consensual?
The phone sex. Let's just call it. It was phone sex, basically.
Phone sex, yes.
And he says that. He says that the.
I'm kidding. I knew what it was. I thought the thong reference earlier was foreshadowing for what we were going to get into.
We're not talking about Lane Kiffin, guys.
But how much worse, guys, could it have been than Jeremy Pruitt? Because Tucker, a couple people did come after him at Michigan State. Kevin Steele was the other finalist, by the way, but Pruitt got the job. But Tucker, some people came after him, so they had to give him this monster contract, and now they're probably going to get out of it with the sexual assault or inappropriate contact or whatever you want to call it.
It was harassment.
Harassment, not assault. Harassment.
No contact was made.
Yes, harassment. So, John, how much worse could it have been if Tennessee's going through this now?
Well, it's hard. I mean, for the Jeremy Pruitt era to have been worse, I think there would have had to have been a death involved. Somebody would needed to have died for it to be any worse. But you look back at those coaching hires, Kevin Steele's ramrodding that Alabama defense. We saw it Saturday. You might remember Kevin's Clemson defense once gave up about 700 points in a bowl game to West Virginia. Yeah, and so that was an elite trio. So I guess your dream staff or nightmare staff could be Mel Tucker's your head guy, Kevin Steele, defensive coordinator, and Jeremy Pruitt, I guess linebackers coach, secondary maybe.
He's the director of compliance, guys.
Yes, his
babysitter would have had that job.
Yes, who's your offensive coordinator in that staff?
You wouldn't have had an offensive coordinator. You'd have been all about defense. You don't need an offensive coordinator. They would have been so good defensively, nobody would have ever scored.
Fair. You look at that trio of coaches: Steele, Tucker, Pruitt. Why did things get so bad at that point where that's your trio of finalists?
Well,
by the way, Lance says Pruitt's in charge of catering, so it'll be Chick-fil-A.
So it could be there's a conspiracy theory out there that Phillip Fulmer wanted to hire a really bad coach who would fail, and then he could become the head coach. He could take over the reins as head coach and lead the Vols to the promised land once more. It's just a theory.
Do you think that could have ever been the case? By the way, he's just about 22 or 24 wins shy of General Nealon's all-time wins record.
With his track record, I wouldn't say it's totally far-fetched. He just comes in and say, hey, I'll run things for a couple of years until we hire an actual coach. Fail the first time, but we'll get somebody better next. So
I thought the direction you would go was that that the leadership was so bad all the way up to the chancellor position.
Oh,
and I think that's what makes Tennessee so different now is what I was trying to get around to, is that all the way up to the chancellor position, the president, everybody seems on board. And I don't know that was the case. It was so splintered back then. I think that's why Tennessee fans should be optimistic, even if you have a bad game here and there. It's like the whole foundation is much better, John.
Oh, much more so. I mean, you had Bev Davenport as chancellor. She was your crazy Ann in the attic. If she would have, she put Fulmer, she moved him in the AD's job. It's not a stretch at all to think if he went to her and said, hey, let me straighten this thing out. I'll be head coach just on an interim basis. We'll turn this thing around. Then we'll hire a younger guy to take over. That's not a stretch.
Caleb, do you remember back in that coaching search, who were the candidates early before they got down to the finalists that Tennessee was looking at? And did they have any real shot of getting them because they were so out of sorts, the entire athletic department?
Well, so this all stems back to the way things went down at the beginning, which was John Currie took way too long to fire Butch Jones, and John Gruden rejected. By the way, we talk about things Tennessee dodged a bullet with. They dodged it with John Gruden too.
Oh, I know. Robert said we needed John Gruden. He ended up being a pretty great racist.
But they took way too long to fire Butch Jones, so they got behind the 8 ball in trying to get Dan Mullen, which is why Dan Mullen ended up at Florida. And then they just, and then the greatest, most successful son of a billionaire ever, Jimmy Haslam, who has never made a mistake in his life, really tried to force through the Greg Schiano hire. And that obviously backfired. And then it's like they had like a deck. It's like if you had a ranking of the best hires, it's like a tornado hit the room and moved them all around, because their next move was Mike Gundy. Then it was Jeff Brom. Then it was Dave Doran. And just as they were closing in on Mike Leach was when the coup happened. And I'll say this much. John Currie's list of coaches was a lot better than Phillip Fulmer's list of coaches on the radar.
And Mike Gundy's the ultimate tease. Good gracious. That guy's flirted with people and gone back to his wife and said, I'm going to leave for you unless you give me more to something. But in this case, it was money from Oklahoma State. I mean, John, but did Tennessee have to bottom out with Jeremy Pruitt to clean house from top to bottom? I'm talking Chancellor on up, AD Chancellor, whoever you want to talk about. Did they have to bottom out with Pruitt to make a hype will happen?
No, I think maybe, I mean, John Currie was on the brink of making a good hire. I think he would have hired Mike Leach. I really do. I think Leach proved he was ready to leave. He'd been there a while. He was ready to leave Washington State. He took the job at Mississippi State. If he would have taken the job at Mississippi State, surely he would have taken the Tennessee job. And so so it's almost like it's right there. I mean, think about it. Ooh, who do we want? Mike Leach or Jeremy Pruitt? And I mean, they were so close, and then Fulmer sabotaged the whole thing.
I don't believe Phillip Fulmer thought, Caleb, that he could get the head coaching job by hiring a bad coach.
I think Fulmer still believed that Tennessee was what Tennessee was in the 90s, which, again, you could maybe get away with like a defensive-minded, non-game planning, kind of simplistic Jimmy's and Joe's coach in the 90s if you're at Tennessee, because Georgia's got, as you refer to him, Dave Drunken Ray Goff, and Alabama's got Mike DeBose or whoever. So you can recruit a lot better, whereas now you need more of a schematic advantage. The irony in all this, by the way, guys, as we're talking about this, we talk about Tennessee kind of dodging a bullet with Pruitt, where the NCAA scandal that happened was a good thing for them because they could fire him for calls and clean house. I can tell you this right now. Michigan State fans are secretly thrilled about this. The program was going nowhere, and they didn't have the money to pay Mel Tucker's buyout, but they're losing transfers left and right. Now they can fire Tucker for calls. So they're in a similar situation to Tennessee in that way.
Isn't it amazing how school administrators will take one reasonably successful season and just throw everything they have money-wise at the coach and line him up with an incredible contract? I mean, we see it all the time. It just takes one good season. Oh, we better lock him down. It's just such a waste of money. Mel Tucker, what is he had one good season at Michigan State, right?
Yeah.
I don't think he had more than one good season. And
just one.
It wasn't a championship season. He had one good season.
It was an optimistic season.
Yes. And what he at Colorado for a cup of coffee?
He bolted after a year at Colorado, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so, I'll say this too, guys, and if he wins a championship, if Jeremy Pruitt wins a championship, I always wonder, which I know is far-fetched, the latter thing that I just said, But I always wonder if administrators would find a way to cover this stuff up. If they want it out there because they want to get out of a buyout. I always wonder that.
Well, I think though the administrators thought there was no championship was happening with Jeremy Pruitt.
Exactly.
They thought he was a blithering idiot, and you have to get him, you have to remove him from the premises as fast as possible. So yeah, it worked out. It worked out to Tennessee's advantage, but we get back to the leadership thing, and you brought it up, Dave. That's what's so different about Tennessee now. Doesn't mean it will win every game, but it's in so much better shape leadership wise, with people that can make tough decisions, people with decent judgment, people with a modicum of common sense. And you didn't have that for a long time. Presidents, chancellors, coaches.
No, you're right. John's appearance brought to you in part by where he got the shirt, the Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards to ensure you only receive the best in CBD or Delta products. Go to Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com, hemphousechat.com, soon to have the Big Orange Crunch developed just for Off the Hook Sports. With your Delta 9 products. It's a fantastic shirt, John, and I hope you have a great day and get a lot of compliments on the shirt.
Yeah, I'm sure I will, Dave. Thanks for plugging it.